What is up, my people? Welcome to another one. Today we're going to talk about Sagat or Sagat, whichever you want to call him. I'm sure he has like a first name, but I just don't remember it. The Emperor has returned. Um, Big dude, Mr. Sagat. I think he's like 7 feet tall or seven plus. Um, and yeah, man. At first, Sagat, he never really was that interesting to me personally. Um, he was just kind of like I guess like a jobber. The only thing that really was interesting about him is the way he got his scar and his eye patch, kind of. But after that, after that first connection with him and Ryu, you really didn't know that much about him, and there really wasn't that much, development. Um, but now getting to know him a little bit more in World Tour, you start to realize that he's a very interesting character. He's a very um he's just there's a lot more to him, and that's what I like about World Tour. World Tour, lets you get to know these characters a little better and what they're about. And it's pretty much a promotional um thing that Capcom does to promote the characters and for you to make you want to buy them, which is very smart and also very fun for the players. So that's just a little advice I would give for people that are in game development and stuff like that. Promote your characters or whatever it is you're doing, with a little bit of free time with that character, and I think that's a very smart way to do it. But anyways, um in all of these characters in World Tour, they become way more interesting than they actually, were initially. One of them that surprised me a lot was Cammy, Ryu, of course. Um, a lot of these characters, they're very interesting, and Sagat, is another one. The suspicion was that Sagat was gonna have something to do with the Satsui no Hado, and a lot of people were saying that was probably going to be the case. And it didn't disappoint. At first you meet this little girl, which is one of the little girls that live in the village. And she she's very friendly, and she likes to make um what do you call these, ornaments or shit like that. I don't know. But the point is, Sagat, he has become kind of like the hero to these kids and to these people of this secluded village. And he has decided to just spend the rest of his days here in this mountain, by himself. Not by himself, with the people. And pretty much help them. And yeah, so you meet up with him there, and he's pretty much, still training, carrying a big ass log, and pretty much looking menacing, which is funny because the people of the village look at him like a hero and like a friendly guy. When he looks, as menacing as he does, he's 7 feet tall. And when he's walking around with his tiger, he makes the tiger look like a little kitty cat, and he actually calls him cat, which is hilarious to me. I don't know, but um but yeah, this world tour was fun. There's a whole there's a couple of hidden things in the stage. One of them is the log competition. You're supposed to be hitting these logs and parrying logs and stuff like that. And there's like three stages to it. There's easy, normal, and there's a hard mode. And it's fun. It's very fun. Then there's another one where there's like a moving rock, which is kind of like a reference to Street Fighter One, and so yeah, that was fun too. I think Street Fighter Two, actually. Was it one or two? One of those. But yeah, so I like dumb shit like that. I like little references to old games. It just it gives me good memories of me making up shit with my toys when I was a kid. Because when you play with action figures, you always have that friend that asks dumb questions about your characters that you're creating with your action figures. And I always enjoyed, making up shit for my friends, and my friends enjoyed me making up shit. It was like a little running gag that we had, to where they would ask a dumb question and I would come up with a with a stupid answer to the lore of my original characters that I would create with my action figures. And this is what happens when you're poor, by the way. You just make up shit, because you can't afford, some of the toys, when you're growing up, because some of the toys are too expensive. So you buy the jobbers and you buy the side characters, and you make up stories for them. You just say, "Oh no, now you're the main character now," and not only you're the main character, you're like, you're awesome. You're different. You're not even that guy from that TV show, because that guy from the TV show sucks. But it's stupid, guys. I know it's stupid, but it just reminds me of that, because they're kind of making up lore as they go along the way. It just seems that way, which is fun. I think it's fun, and they call it shots anyways, because these are their characters. Um, but one of the cool things that happened is I actually finished Sagat off the same way Ryu gave him that scar in his chest. So I thought that was pretty cool. And it gets me into the main subject of today, which is the Satsui no Hado and its connection to Sagat. And how Sagat has actually beaten the Satsui no Hado. And in this world tour mode, Sagat kind of makes you go on a mission. He tells you, "Hey, you're doing pretty good there," or whatever. Maybe you should go talk to Ryu about, the dangers of doing too good for your own good. And so you go talk to Ryu, and Ryu tells you, you have to deal with it your own way, and you have to fight it, and become one with it, really, pretty much, and just accept it, because it's always going to be there or whatever. And to some people, that may seem like a half-ass answer. It may seem that way. But to me, it's actually a much more realistic answer. The killing intent, the Satsui no Hado, is something that's always inside every person. It's the yin yang thing, man. It's alive and well, even in Street Fighter. And I think him, acknowledging that, and giving us a much more real answer, because Ryu could have said, "You have to go to the mountain of the Satsui and gather 5 stones from the river of peace, and then come back to me and lick my toes," or some shit. "And only then will you, master the Satsui no Hado." And some shit like that. And that would have been cool, I guess, and give us like a little adventure to go on, and maybe put some symbolism behind that adventure or whatever. But it's a much more grounded, much more real, in my opinion, answer. And it gives us progression instead of being stuck on this constant battle between the Satsui no Hado and between Ryu and the Satsui no Hado, the Dark Hado. And it gives us, it's got to kind of come into a conclusion, to closure, with all of these things, which is cool. And the one thing I realized about Sagat is that time and time again, he is faced with the chance to embrace the Satsui no Hado. And time again, he has come out on top. right? Except for maybe against I forgot his name. Go. What is this guy's name, by the way? Go something. Ibuki is the dad of Dan Hibuki, right? Is that his Damn, I forgot his name. But the point is, this is Dan's father, and he was fighting against Dan's father, and again he was winning. Like usual, Sagat's usually beating the shit out of his opponents. But he gets I guess he gets too confident, he gets too full of himself, and he lets his guard down, and the other guy lets his intrusive thoughts, or whatever, the Satsui no Hado, I guess you could say, take over, and he just strikes, bah, right? And he takes out one of his eyes, which, by the way, he mentions that he's already kind of blind from that eye anyways. So that eye was already bad to begin with. But he could still see out of it. It was just he could see less out of it, and that's how he got caught, because that's his weak point. Um, and what ends up happening is that he has no choice, because it's either him or the other guy, because the other guy's coming right at him, with killing intent. So in order to defend himself, he has to finish it off by defeating Dan's father. And of course, later on, Sagat faces Dan, and and he lets him win. Um, and this is something that maybe Ryu wouldn't be able to do, or Akuma definitely wouldn't be able to do, because they have a bigger, the Satsui no Hado has a bigger hold on them than on Sagat. And Sagat seems to me like he always comes out on top when it comes to fighting the Satsui no Hado. And in essence, you kind of understand why he says that he can't lose, not to anyone. Is because he may lose the fight, but he's not going to lose himself. He's not going to lose who he is, even though he may have some mistakes along the way. Like, for example, joining Shadow Lu, and working for Bison. Could be a mistake, I guess, right? But he corrects those mistakes when he realizes that he's in the wrong path, and he does better for himself. And that's, something that I, kind of admire about Sagat, is that, he keeps himself intact, even though he may have scars and lose an eye and lose some battles. At the end of the day, he's still him, and he still maintains, himself, who he is. And when these other people like Ryu, like Akuma, kind of lose themselves to the art, kind of lose themselves to the situations that they're in. And yeah, it's very interesting to me, how different people deal with the Satsui no Hado. And so, yeah, so I think there should still be like an evil Sagat, because we haven't had I think a giant attack mode for Sagat, and I think there should probably be one for him, because he seems like a very powerful character. And we should make him evil. He should take off his patch, and there should be like some purple, evil intent power coming out of that eye, just oozing out of that eye. And I think that would be a good, kind of a Sagat form, when it comes to the Satsui no Hado or whatever. But anyways, another one was him talking about Idom, or Udon. I forgot. What is it? Idom, I think. And yeah, so I kind of hate him, especially. I mean, before I already thought that he was kind of weird, but then now that Sagat talked about him, yeah, sure, he's gonna throw shade at him or whatever, but at the same time, if it's true, He's a shitty dude, that guy. Because he pretty much saw Sagat at a weak moment. After he fought Ryu, and he got that scar on his chest, and he thought, you know what, he's weak right now, so I'm gonna attack him. That's what it seemed like to me, and I think that's pretty fucked up. But you know, it just overall, I think Sagat came out or came through as a very interesting character and as another connection to the Satsui no Hado. And me personally, I think that it's good that Ryu has, come to a peaceful conclusion into how to deal with the Satsui no Hado. And I think, you know, um, they should come up with a new form for Ryu, because I mean, what they're gonna probably end up doing is bringing him back as evil Ryu, right? But I personally think that they shouldn't do that. In the comic books, in Udon comic books, there's a an episode there where Ryu embraces the Dark Hado, but also embraces the light or whatever. And one of his eyes turns red, and the other one turns white or blue. And he kind of says that he's kind of like a yin yang type thing going on, where he's embraced both sides of his martial arts, and the good and the bad. And he looks pretty cool. I mean, if you look at it on Udon comic books, it looks pretty cool. They could do a redesign off of that and come up with a more complete Ryu, instead of going back to the same old evil Ryu and stuff like that, which is fine. I'm not saying that you should not do that, but I think that now that he has a hold of the Dark Hado, of the Satsui no Hado, I think maybe it's time to come up with a new form, a new power up, because people are always gonna like power ups. That's the main reason why Evil Ryu is so popular, and Shin Akuma, and all of these evil sides, because people like forms, and people like power ups. They like level ups. And it would be cool if they would bring in that particular form from Udon comics. By the way, this here is his finishing quote for Lily. And it's funny how it talks about a wall, and Lily's Mexican. So I don't know. It's just kind of funny. Anyways, that was pretty much Sagat, guys. And we got a kind of like a look, kind of like a sneak peek at his costume 3, which looks pretty awesome. He has the tiger stripes on the collar there, and he has he just looks good. It reminds me a little bit of him in the live action Street Fighter. And in this scene here, in the world tour, people contract him, or the boss contracts him, just as an intimidation tactic to his partners, his business partners. And I thought it was funny. And he doesn't know what's going on. Sagat, he's just a big, tall, fighter. He doesn't really care. But yeah, man, I can't wait for his costume 3. I think this is gonna be it here. And there's a cool little thing going on where the people like to give Sagat presents, and they give him food, and they give him stuff, and there's a little mission that you have to go on, and to get these flowers for the little girl to make a little crown for Sagat. It's pretty sweet, especially since you know how hard it's been for Sagat. Anyways, guys, I know you guys has probably already gotten your hands on the swimsuits. I just want to know what you guys think about them, and who you guys like. I personally think Chun-Li won. Of course, she didn't have competition. Cause I mean, she did have competition, but I think Mai would have probably given her a run for her money. And even Jury, even though I hate her guts, she has a pretty hot body. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys think won? I think Chun-Li won personally. A lot of people like Cammy. I personally think Cammy looks like one of those girls that complains about you having loud music in the beach. But to each his own, I guess. But yeah, Chun-Li for me. Chun-Li for me. And last but not least, I'm just gonna touch up on Sea Viper, Crimson Viper, who is gonna be coming up next. She already had her teaser trailer in Evo, Las Vegas, and yeah, man. So she's gonna be working, or her stage is gonna be the grid, which is kind of like a sign of what they're gonna be doing with a lot of these fighters, because we're not gonna get another stage. The Sagat stage is the last stage we're gonna get for this season, which kind of sucks. But this is what they're gonna be doing now. They're gonna be giving stages that already exist to each one of the next fighters, which means that it is probably gonna be either in the subway, right, or with Luke in his gym, or in the streets. He's gonna be in one of those, but he's definitely gonna be in Metro City. We're just gonna have to see. I think he's probably gonna be in the subway, because that's fitting to his first stage. But the reason I think he might be at the gym is because he is a bit of a gym rat himself. He has a gym. I don't know if he owns it, but he's usually in the gym. So who knows? We're just gonna have to see. And the one that bothers me a little bit is Ingrid, because Ingrid, she's such a weird character that she does, in my opinion, she deserves her own stage. Just she really looks like she deserves her own stage. And in my mind, she seems like she'd be like in a cosmic library. And I know I said this before, like a cosmic library where you see like stars and the Milky Way in the background and shit, and you see a lot of books floating around, and she just grabs a book from the air and she starts reading it or whatever. That's what I'm thinking, because the way she looks, she seems like, and from what I hear from her, she's a bit of a cosmic character herself, because she's considered the god of Street Fighter, or of this universe, the Street Fighter universe. So yeah, but we're just gonna have to wait and see, guys. I personally can't wait. Even for Sea Viper, she looks interesting herself too. So, but anyways, guys, I'm gonna have to get out of here. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I will catch you guys later.